Your girl Sydney Sweeney and American Eagle are both under fire because there's a controversy around an advertisement and a collaboration that was done between them that suggests that American Eagle was hinting at some eugenics theories and ideologies, or at least promoting them. We're going to talk about it, y'all. I'm your host, Cool Colas, and I want to give y'all my perspective on it all. So let's get into it. Actress Sydney Sweeney recently did an ad campaign with American Eagle where she stated the words, and I quote, "Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue." Also in this advertisement, she was modeling a pair of blue jeans, and in most scenes, she was modeling a blue jean jacket. Now, we need to couple this also with the fact that Sydney Sweeney is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, thin white woman. Now, a lot of people were reacting to this ad, and people were split on how they felt about it. You had a certain group of people who were going around basically saying that this sounded like eugenics. This was a eugenics theory and ideology that was being promoted subtly. Because you have this idea that through eugenics, a person with blonde hair and blue eyes is seen as genetically superior. And in this ad, they also said that Sydney Sweeney has great genes, but they try to play somewhat of a double entendre because they had it where they were saying genes and genes, but they really were trying to relate genetics to a pair of pants. The other side, you have these mayonnaise eating white supremacists who are probably eating out of a jar as they're currently watching this video, who are basically going around saying that this was a total reach and that there is no issue with what was being said and it was just simply an advertisement that everybody blew out of proportion. So let's just dive into that alone. My stance on this issue is the same stance that I just have on media, generally speaking. Nothing is ever done by accident or coincidence or in a harmless way. Media is often used as a mechanism to portray the messages that those who are creating that piece of media want to portray to their audience, and also want to indoctrinate their audience to believe. Advertisements work the same way because, again, that falls under what? I'll give y'all a couple seconds to figure it out. Media. Nothing in advertisement is advertised on accident. It's very purposeful. There's certain colors that they use, certain fonts that they use, certain wordings that they use, certain phrases, certain people. Every single piece that they put into these advertisements is meant to sway you and to convince you to do something and to also send a message with whatever it is that they are trying to sell or that they are trying to advertise. So none of this stuff is done on accident and none of it is innocent. When it comes to copyright, this is a very manipulative process, and it's a process that controls your emotions. And I just want to go over a few statistics so we are on the same page about how copyright is not an innocent practice and it's not done just because. There's a strategic reason why these things happen. The first thing is that humans make emotional decisions, and copyright is meant to exploit those emotional decisions. As a matter of fact, 95% of purchase decisions are subconscious and emotional and not rational. And when you think about copywriters, they intentionally use triggers like fear, desire, nostalgia, urgency, shame, and all of these other things to override your logic. Another thing we need to think about is that they use certain words persuasively. So you have these studies that even show that when they use words like you and now and because and secret and free and new, it can increase engagement. So they know to use certain words that will potentially get them better sales off of their ads. Again, I mentioned this earlier. You have color, you have fonts, you have the placement of the way that words are when you see the advertisement. 90% of consumers say color alone affects their buying decisions. And this was a study that was done at the University of Winnipeg in 2020. So that tells you a lot about how consumers even see it. Also, too, if you think about behavioral science and how it's built into these different advertisements, it shows you that there is a subconscious behavior of wanting to do things out of urgency, and then that creates trust. Copywriting isn't just writing clever slogans and people just saying ooh and ah. It's a billion-dollar science that's built to control one's behavior, which is indoctrination. As I said, media also does as well too. I mean, think about it. You ever wonder why every ad says limited time or don't miss out? That creates FOMO. That's not creativity. That's manipulation. That's the fear of missing out. That's a psychological trigger. And it's the same with free shipping, or when you see something that says join the movement, or something that creates some level of urgency that makes you want to buy this thing. They're not just selling pants. They're selling a certain identity. They're selling their belief system. And when you see Sydney Sweeney next to something that says good genes, they're not being clever. What they're doing is creating indoctrination, and they're wrapping it in a font and colorful schemes and being witty or trying to be witty and all these other things that people are purposefully, in my opinion, trying to turn a blind eye to. And let's be real, the whole good genes thing, that wasn't innocent or an accident either. They were trying to make a coded message, but they were trying to be slick about it. A lot of these suspected white supremacists, they have to be kind of covert with their language. They want to make statements, but then they don't want to really make the statement. So they'll do it in a kind of sneaky and subtle way. And it's not an accident either that they would literally get Sydney Sweeney, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman who is thin and is seen as a symbol of white beauty, to pull off what they were trying to convey with this advertisement. So none of this is an accident at all, and it was all purposefully orchestrated. Now, whether you want to call that soft eugenics, racial messaging, elitist branding, I don't give a damn what title that you use. Just understand this wasn't random and it wasn't innocent. And honestly, y'all, we could even go further with it. The phrase good genes has a long history of being tied to a white supremacist ideology. Think about how it ties into Nazi propaganda, the alt-right, U.S. eugenics movements that happened in the 20th century, and then also too these different forced sterilization campaigns that were targeted towards black people as well too. Some have even argued that because they were using Sydney Sweeney in this ad, it was a way of basically showing that she was the paradigm for what they would like for the classic Eurocentric standard of beauty. Another thing that I noticed in this ad is that they focused a lot on her body as well too, because there were times where they were focusing on her ass. Like, you had a moment where she was like, I'm not going to say that they don't make your butt look good or that they make your butt look good. So she was, doing that and whatnot. And it seemed as though they were trying to reinforce this idea that the way that Sydney Sweeney looked was the paradigm of good genes. And she is obviously that classic Eurocentric standard of beauty that a lot of these suspected white supremacists would envision women to appear like. And what it also begs the question of is, well, if you're saying that the way that Sydney Sweeney looks is an example of good genes, then what is bad genes? And it ultimately hints at the idea that if a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, thin white woman is an example of good genes, that bad genes may in fact be a woman who is indeed more curvaceous, more melanated, and does not have blue eyes, which sounds like what? A black woman. I mean, even just by definition, blue eyes, and pale skin, is that not considered a mutation? So I don't see how that would be considered good genes just by the very definition. And I mean, to be clear, to be real clear, Sydney Sweeney she's alright. I mean, if I was to rate her on the scale for white women, I'd probably say she's about a cool 7 to 7.5 out of 10. But she don't beat none of the black women that I can think of who are celebrities who look much better than her. I mean, she don't look nothing like a Beyonce. She don't look nothing like Chloe Bailey. She don't look nothing like Megan Good. And to be quite honest with you, most of the women that I just named, if not all, are actually older than Sydney Sweeney, and they look way better. And that, my friends, is an example of good genes. Even when you're older, as a black woman, you look better than a white woman who is younger than you. Hey, how's that work out? And I'm going to be straight with you too. Sydney Sweeney wouldn't even really be a 7 if it wasn't for them big ass titties. And I'm not trying to beat up on Sydney Sweeney or nothing, but she put herself out there so she can catch a few strays. I don't know. I want to kind of bring it back for y'all. Although my take is that this was done on purpose, I need to make something else clear that's going to kind of steer this whole conversation in a different direction. Although I think it was on purpose, there's a big thing that people are missing in this conversation. And what I noticed is that American Eagle is a company that isn't relevant with the black community whatsoever. I mean, we don't wear none of their shit. We don't, like, even when I was younger, I never said, oh, I gotta go into this American Eagle joint and check this shit out because they gonna have some fly clothes. I never said nothing like that. Growing up, I probably was wearing stuff like Rockaware, Sean John, and then once I got into college, it was more like Ralph Lauren Polo and stuff like that, you know. But American Eagle is a store that most foundational black American men and women didn't really pay any type of damn attention to. And I mean, even looking at Sydney Sweeney's outfit, I mean, it really didn't look like shit. I mean, hell, she was over there looking like Monty from Daddy's Little Girl and shit when he was working as a damn car repairman. The reason why I think this is far from being an accident is because this is a practice that has gone on time and time again from these suspected white supremacists who run these different fashion and clothing companies. I mean, think about it. You had H&M with their whole coolest monkey in the jungle hoodie, where the black boy was wearing the hoodie and he was the coolest monkey in the jungle, associating black people with monkeys. You had Prada and they had the little Sambo figurines, and then you had Gucci with the blackface sweater, and you had all these different scandals where these companies were doing something real janky, and it was to, you know, cause controversy, which led to creating relevance, people speaking about their janky ass brand. With that being said, I believe that this was a strong attempt to try to gain relevance because wasn't nobody thinking or talking about American Eagle whatsoever. So, you know, a lot of times, I said this before, you have these suspected white supremacists who, you know, they'll be producers. In this case, you have companies and advertisements and people who are in the clothing industry. And what they'll do is a both sides agenda. They'll create a message or they'll do something that's polarizing that will wake up all of these headlight scratching folks out here who get pissed off about it. And then you got, you know, people who are more on that social justice oriented side, and the two sides are basically fighting. You know, usually with media, you have it where, you know, somebody will race swap a character from white to black, and then all of these racist white nerds will start bitching about it, and then, you know, you'll have people who are more justice oriented and they'll basically be focusing on the racist fans, not realizing that these individuals put this race swap in place because they wanted to garner attention. It's a form of desperation because they can't do shit that's clever. They don't have no type of creativity. Nobody's paying attention to them. Nobody gives a damn about them, and they have no type of relevance. So this is the only way that they can create relevance. Now, American Eagle is doing something kind of similar, but in this case, what they're doing is creating a message that people who are social justice oriented are going to recognize. They call the shit out, and then you have these people on the other side, again, the headlight scratching, mayonnaise eating white supremacists who will come out and say, that's a reach, dude. You know, and then they'll be fighting, and then the conversation will be about how racist the ad was, and then people fighting back and forth about it. Now it creates relevance around American Eagle where they're talked about again. That's what it all kind of comes down to. Black outrage is a marketing strategy. They use our pain for payment. My final words here, y'all, is that this is the very definition of the desperation, relevance, racist agenda. Now that was a mouthful, but let me explain what basically happened here. You have these white supremacists or suspected white supremacists who are basically nobodies and someone that we ain't really stunned like that. And in order to gain relevance, they have to do something desperate. So they will even go as far to create some type of racist or a covert racist agenda or do something that's real slick that will get people talking. And then it will bring out all those who are also white supremacists and people who won't stand for that type of shit. And then as these two people clash and fight and bicker and all this other stuff, here they are getting relevance because they're being talked about. Remember, when it comes to media, any type of attention is good attention, whether it's good or whether it's bad. So when American Eagle is doing something like this, this was a way for them to create relevance. Because remember, y'all, the dominant society are full of a bunch of weasels. These are individuals who are cowards, manipulative, and because they're not creative enough, not fly enough, not slick enough, and also not witty enough to get something popping that's relevant and interesting on their own. They have to lean on racist controversies in order for somebody to even pay attention to them. When, again, let's be clear, we as foundational Black Americans never gave a shit about American Eagle, and we still don't. All right, y'all, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say, and I'll definitely have more to come, so make sure you stay tuned. In the meantime, I would love it if you liked this video, subscribed, shared, and also hit the bell icon so you get notifications for whenever I come out with new content on this channel. Other than that, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out, y'all.